وَآيَةٌ لَهُمُ اللَّيْلُ. And a sign for them is the night. How? That نَسْلَخُ مِنْهُ النَّهَارِ, we remove from it the day, فَإِذَا هُمْ مُظْلِمُونَ, so they are left in darkness. وَآيَةٌ لَهُمْ, and a great sign for them is in what? The layl, the night. Meaning the night itself is a great sign for the people. And what is it a great sign of? Of the tremendous power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How is it a sign? That naslahu, we strip off, we peel off, we remove, minhu, from it, meaning from the night, we remove an-nahara, the day. Naslahu, from the root letters? Sin, lam, kha. Salakha. Salakha literally is to remove the skin of an animal so that the flesh is exposed. Have you ever seen it? Chickens, oh yeah, of course. But typically when cows and goats, when they're slaughtered, and if you've seen them being slaughtered, after the animal has been slaughtered, typically it's hung upside down, and then what is done? The skin is pulled, right? It's removed. So this process of peeling the skin off, removing the skin, this is what salakha. Because when you remove the skin, then what happens? The flesh is exposed. Similarly, if you happen to buy chicken with the skin on, and you have to remove the skin yourself, when you remove it, what happens? The flesh becomes exposed. Now the animal with the skin on and skin off, is it the same? It's not the same, completely different. With the skin on, it looks different. Once you peel the skin off, completely different. Any other word from the same root? Sin, lam, kha? فَانْسَلَخَ مِنْهَا وَاتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ الَّذِي آتَيْنَاهُ آيَاتِنَا فَانْسَلَخَ مِنْهَا فَأَتْبَعَهُ الشَّيْطَانُ فَكَانَ مِنَ الْغَاوِينَ. Recite to them the example of the one whom we gave the knowledge of our verses, but he, in salakha minha, he slipped out of them, he just came out of them. And what does it mean, in salakha? It is when a snake sheds its skin, right? When it removes its skin. Now, this process of getting rid of the skin, peeling off the skin or coming out of the skin, it takes long. Isn't it so? It's not easy. It happens gradually. You put effort, but what happens? It happens gradually. So, over here, نَسْلَخُ مِنْهُ النَّهَارِ, what it means is that we separate the day from the night. We remove the light of the day from the night. That just as gradually the skin is being removed, similarly gradually the light of the day is removed, and as a result what happens? The night comes in. Isn't it so? نَسْلَخُ مِنْهُ النَّهَارِ. As the night comes in, what happens? The light of the day is gradually taken away, gradually withdrawn. فَإِذَا, then all of a sudden, without even them realizing this huge change, هُمْ مُظْلِمُونَ, they are in darkness. Muslimun, plural of Muslim. And who is Muslim? One who is in darkness, one who enters the darkness. Everything was bright. There was sunlight, there was bright light everywhere. And as the night comes in, the light of the day is gradually stripped away, and فَإِذَا هُمْ مُظْلِمُونَ, they find themselves in darkness. And they cannot stop the light of the day from leaving. Isn't it so? So فَإِذَا, all of a sudden, without their ability to stop it, هُمْ مُظْلِمُونَ. Now in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the night and how the darkness of the night covers the earth and how the light gradually goes away. This is mentioned in many other places of the Quran as well. In Surah Al-A'raf, ayah 54, for example, we learn يُغْشِ اللَّيْلَ النَّهَارَ يَطْلُبُهُ حَسِيسًا, that He covers the night with the day, another night chasing it rapidly. He covers the night with the day, another night chasing it rapidly. And this constantly happens. The day comes, the night leaves, the night comes, the day leaves. And if you think about it, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not have this process of the night gradually coming in and the day gradually leaving, wouldn't it be so difficult for us? That imagine if all of a sudden the day is gone. All of a sudden the light is gone. You know, sometimes you're working and somebody comes and switches off the light, or the light stops working. You're in the middle of your work. How difficult it is to even move from there. So many times accidents happen at this time. Like, for example, a person is in the house, all of a sudden the electricity went off, and what happened? The person fell down, they hurt their ankle, they hurt their back, they hurt themselves so bad. So it happens so many times. So it's a huge blessing of Allah that this huge change, how does it happen? Gradually. So that it's easy for us to accept it. And if it did not happen gradually, it would create a lot of difficulties for us. And the fact that the night changes into the day and the day changes into the night, even in that is a blessing. Because if it was constantly day or constantly night, again life would become very difficult. In Surah Al-Qasas, ayah 71 to 73, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us, قُلْ أَرَأَيْتُمْ إِنْ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكُمُ اللَّيْلَ سَرْمَدًا إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ مَنْ إِلَهٌ غَيْرُ اللَّهِ يَأْتِيكُمْ بِضِيَاءٍ أَفَلَا تَسْمَعُونَ? Say, have you ever considered if Allah should make for you the night continuous until the day of resurrection? What deity other than Allah could bring you light? Will you not hear then? قُلْ أَرَأَيْتُمْ إِنْ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكُمُ النَّهَارَ سَرْمَدًا إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ مَنْ إِلَهٌ غَيْرُ اللَّهِ يَأْتِيكُمْ بِلَيْلٍ تَسْكُنُونَ فِيهِ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ? Have you considered if Allah should make for you the day continuous until the day of resurrection? Which God other than Allah could bring you a night in which you may rest? Will you not see? Will you not understand? وَمِن رَحْمَتِهِ جَعَلَ لَكُمُ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ لِتَسْكُنُوا فِيهِ وَلِتَبْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِهِ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. That it is out of His mercy He made for you the night and the day, that you may rest therein, and by day seek from His bounty, and that perhaps you will be grateful. So what do we see in this ayah? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made this system of the night and the day. This constantly changing system of the night and the day. Why? So that we can rest in the night and we can work in the day. Otherwise, imagine if it was night 24/7. Would we be able to do our work? In winter, what happens? As soon as Maghrib comes in, although it's only 5 o'clock, we just switch off. Isn't it so? Happens with me at least. Because I start getting ready for bed and I'm like, oh, it's night time now. The day is over. Work time is finished. It happens, right? Just imagine if it was night all the time, or if it was night most of the time. We would not be able to accomplish anything. And just imagine if it was day all the time, 24/7 daytime. Would we be able to find any rest? No. Many times what happens with children is that when night falls, then naturally they become tired. Naturally they want to sleep because of the darkness, right? If you want a child to sleep, what do? You switch off the lights, you keep the room dark, you keep the house calm. But if there's noise outside, there's noise inside, light outside, light inside, would they rest? No. It would affect their health so much. It would affect us so much. So it's a huge blessing that Allah has made the system of this constant rotation of the night and the day. That this way we get to rest, we get to work, and naturally our bodies shut off, and naturally they turn on as well. Because for us to be able to sleep at night, it's not just that we have to switch off our lights and close the doors, right? It's also about the phone. Because during the day people will call, during the night they will not call. But imagine if it was day all the time. People would call in the night as well, right? So when would we get to rest? So it's a huge blessing of Allah. Also we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the earth in such a way that it is revolving around its axis at a specific angle. It's rotating at a specific speed, so that the night comes, the day leaves, the day comes, the night leaves. And this is something that is not in people's control. Isn't it so? Can we cause the earth to rotate? If it stops, if it becomes still, even for a moment, can we cause it to move? We cannot. It's beyond our ability. So, who is causing all of this to happen? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a huge blessing. And it's not just a matter of a day or two, a week or two, a month or two, a year or two, but this has been happening since the very beginning. That constantly, night, day, So who is maintaining all of this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ, it is of His signs that there is someone behind all of this, someone who is managing all of this, someone who is functioning all of this. And who is that? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because it cannot be in the hands of any human being. وَالشَّمْسُ تَجْرِي لِمُسْتَقَرٍّ لَهَا, and the sun runs on course towards its stopping point. وَالشَّمْسُ, and the sun, meaning, and a sign for them is in the sun, that tajri, it runs, tajri, jara yajri, which means to flow, to proceed, to run. So it's running on its course, لِمُسْتَقَرٍّ لَهَا, toward its stopping point. The sun is moving on its course towards its stopping point. What does it mean by this? Mustaqar is from the root letters qaf ra ra, qarar. What does qarar mean? To become still. And the word mustaqar, what is this? What kind of a noun is it? Ism, zarf, and also masdar. Okay, it's zarf as well as masdar. Over here, however, it gives the meaning of masdar. And remember that zarf is of two types: zarf of makan and also of zaman. Now, what does it mean by mustaqar? If we take it as makan, if we take mustaqar to be makan, then it gives the meaning of mawdi'ul qarar, the place of settlement, the place of stopping, the stopping point, the resting place, destination. Like in the Quran we learn وَلَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُسْتَقَرٌ وَمَتَاعٌ إِلَى حِينٍ. For you in the earth is mustaqar, meaning the place of stay, resting place. That is your abode, that is your home, that is where you will stay. Right? And mustaqar, secondly, can also be understood as in time. So mustaqar would mean the time to settle in, the appointed time. The appointed time. So over here, وَالشَّمْسُ تَجْرِي لِمُسْتَقَرٍّ لَهَا, this can be understood in a number of ways. If we take the meaning of mustaqar to be zarf, then what does it mean by it? That the sun is on its course, it's running on its course, right? It's running limustaqar, towards its destination, towards a particular point. So it is moving on its orbit, it's moving on its course until it reaches a particular point, until it reaches a particular place. You understand? Now what does it mean by this? Until it reaches that particular place. This has been understood from a hadith. We can further understand it with the help of a hadith. That in al-Bukhari we learned that Abu Dharr radhiyallahu anhu, he said that I was with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the masjid at sunset. The sun was setting and I was with him in the masjid. And he said, "Oh Abu Dharr, do you know where the sun sets?" So I said, "Allah and His Messenger know best." He said, "It goes and prostrates beneath the throne." And that is what Allah says, وَالشَّمْسُ تَجْرِي لِمُسْتَقَرٍّ لَهَا ذَلِكَ تَقْدِيرُ الْعَزِيزِ الْعَلِيمِ. That throughout the day, what do we see? The sun rises, constantly moving on its course, right? Constantly moving. And then finally, the sun sets. Now when it sets, where does it go? From the hadith we learn, it goes and prostrates beneath the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what is the mustaqar? The place where it's headed to? Beneath the throne. Now, where exactly is that point in space? We do not know. Allahu A'lam. And this is part of the unseen. This is part of the ghaib. This is why we believe in it. This is why we accept it as it is. You understand? So, وَالشَّمْسُ تَجْرِي لِمُسْتَقَرٍّ لَهَا. And when the sun goes over there, prostrates to Allah, then it is granted permission to rise again. And one day it will go, seek permission, and it will be told, go back to where you came from. So it will rise from where? From the west. Right? So وَالشَّمْسُ تَجْرِي لِمُسْتَقَرٍّ لَهَا. In this case, the lam has been understood as lam of illah, cause. That it's because of this mustaqar that the sun is constantly moving. That it goes over there, seeks permission, it's granted permission, it rises again. When it completes its orbit, what happens? It goes back to that point again, seeks permission from Allah, beneath the throne, it's given permission again, and it completes its circle again. You understand? So الشَّمْسُ تَجْرِي لِمُسْتَقَرٍّ لَهَا, li meaning because of. Secondly, we can understand this mustaqar to be mustaqar in zaman, meaning in time. So the sun is constantly moving towards its stopping point in time, meaning it is constantly moving until it will reach a time when it will cease to exist. And when is that? The Day of Judgment, or when it will cease to continue. It will not move anymore. It will not do what it does anymore. Because of the sun, the moon has light. Because of the sun, the earth has light. Because of the sun, the different creatures can exist on the earth, right? But a particular point will come, a particular point in time, the sun will hit, when it will not function normally anymore. So what is this mustaqar then? The Day of Judgment, where when it will reach, it will not continue anymore. So الشَّمْسُ تَجْرِي لِمُسْتَقَرٍّ لَهَا. ذَلِكَ, that is, تَقْدِيرُ, determination of who? Al-Aziz Al-Alim, the mighty, the knowing. Taqdeer is from the root letters Qaf Dal Ra. Qaddara yuqaddiru taqdeer. What does it mean? To decree, to ordain something. So this is what Allah has ordained. What? The course of the sun. How it's supposed to rise, when it's supposed to set, when it's supposed to rise again. This entire system, who has placed it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the fact that the sun is constantly doing its work, and a point will come when it will cease to exist, who has set the system? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So everything about the sun, who has determined it? The one who is Al-Aziz and the one who is Al-Alim. Why are these two names mentioned over here? When you look at the sun, aren't you amazed by its magnitude, by its light, by its heat? It's amazing. But if you think about it, there's someone else who is causing the sun to do what it's doing. And who is he? The one who is Aziz, the one who is mightier than the sun. Al-Aziz, and he's also Al-Alim, the one who is knowing. And the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Al-Alim, what does it mean? That Allah, the one who has all ilm. Ilm that is kamil, and ilm that is shamil. Two words, if you remember, you will understand the meaning of Al-Alim. That Allah is Al-Alim, meaning He is Zul Ilm, that is Kamil, and that is Shamil. What does it mean by Kamil? Complete. So what does it mean by that? That Allah's Ilm is complete in the sense that it's not preceded by Jahl, by ignorance, and it is not afflicted by Nisyan, by forgetfulness. You understand? So His Ilm, His knowledge is complete. Complete how? Perfect how? That there is nothing at all that He is unaware of, and there is nothing at all that He forgets. لا يضل ربي ولا ينسى. He does not forget. And secondly, ilm that is shamil. What does it mean by shamil? It covers everything, صغير and kabir. Everything small and everything big. Remember that ayah? That ولا رطب ولا يابس, nothing that is wet or dry, إلا في كتاب مبين. Not a leaf falls except that He knows about it, right? So His ilm is kamil and shamil. So this is the decree of Al-Aziz Al-Alim. So in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us about the sun. And if you think about it, the entire creation in a way depends on what? The sun. In a way, it depends on the sun, isn't it? If you look at the earth, if there was no sun, no sunlight, no plants. No plants, no animals, and no human beings. Right? So many things, so many functions of this universe are dependent on the sun. Who is controlling it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it reflects His knowledge that the entire sustenance of the creation in a way depends on the sun, and who is managing all of that? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Al-Aziz, the mighty, Al-Alim, the knowing. So we are made to reflect over here on the creation of the universe, and especially the sun. And this is mentioned in many other places of the Quran as well. In Surah Al-Anbiya, ayah number 33, we learn, وَهُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ وَالشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ كُلٌّ فِي فَلَكٍ يَسْبَحُونَ. That it is He who has created the night and the day, and the sun and the moon. Allah is the one who has created all of these celestial bodies. And all of them in an orbit are swimming, constantly moving. What does that reflect? The power and might of Allah. Think about it. To make one ball move, one small ball or a beach ball, right, which hardly has any weight, to make it move, what do you do? What do? You have to throw it, you have to push it, you have to kick it, right? And you push it, you throw it, you kick it, it moves, but then after some time it comes to a stop. But it's amazing how the sun, huge, massive, constantly moving. Constantly moving. The earth, constantly moving. The moon, constantly moving. Isn't that amazing? What does it reflect? The power of Allah. Because depending on your power, you throw the ball, right? Depending on your might, you throw your ball. And depending on that, it will cover a long distance. So the fact that the sun, the moon, all of these celestial bodies are constantly moving, it reflects the great power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In Surah Ibrahim, ayah 33, we learn, وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمُ الشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ دَائِبَيْنِ وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمُ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ. That He has subjected for you the sun and the moon, continuous in orbit. The sun and the moon, continuous in orbit, constantly moving. It never happens that all of a sudden the sun is stuck in the sky. It's 3 p.m., it's 3 p.m. It doesn't move beyond that point. No, it doesn't happen. Constantly moving, and subjected for you are the night and the day. In Surah Al-An'am, ayah 96, we learn, فَالِقُ الْإِصْبَاحِ وَجَعَلَ اللَّيْلَ سَكَنًا وَالشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ حُسْبَانًا ذَلِكَ تَقْدِيرُ الْعَزِيزِ الْعَلِيمِ. He is the cleaver of daybreak. The daybreak, the morning, as the day breaks, who causes it to cleave? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He has made the night for rest, and the sun and moon for calculation. That is the determination of the exalted in might, the knowing. So in this ayah, the sun is mentioned, and in the following ayah, the moon is mentioned. وَالْقَمَرَ, and the moon, قَدَّرْنَاهُ مَنَازِلَ, we have determined for it phases. For the moon, we have determined phases for it. حَتَّى, until, عَادَ, it returns, كَالْعُرْجُونِ الْقَدِيمِ, appearing like the old date stock. The moon, how does it function? How does it work? That Allah has determined for it, with respect to its course, manazil. Manazil is a plural of manzil. And what does manzil mean? Destination, stopping place. And manzil is also used for a phase. Just imagine you're going down the elevator. Okay, nazil, it's going down. So every floor that it stops at, every floor is what? A manzil. It's a destination for some, but it's a phase for others. Right? It will continue to move on. Allahu A'lam, perhaps every floor is also called a manzil. I do not know, but I'm just guessing. So manazil is what? Stages, phases. Okay? So وَالْقَمَرَ قَدَّرْنَاهُ manazil. What are these manazil of the moon? These phases of the moon. Okay? That how each day the shape of the moon changes. How? That at the beginning it's only a crescent. What happens the next day? Slightly bigger. What happens the next day? Slightly bigger. Until the middle of the month when it's full moon. And then what happens? It begins to reduce. Every single day it reduces until it reaches the end of the month where it disappears. Correct? And when it disappears, then there's a problem. People wonder, what's going to happen the next day? So, how many phases does the moon have? How many stages does it have? 28. Okay? It has 28 stages in 28 nights of every month. And it becomes concealed for 2 nights when the month has 30 days. And it becomes concealed for 1 night when the month is of 29 days. Okay? Otherwise the moon is visible for how many nights in a row? 28, not 29. It will be visible only 28. If the month is of 30 nights, 30 days, then how many nights will the moon be absent for? 2. And if it's 29, then how many nights will it be absent for? 1. So القمر قدرناه منازل, we have determined for it fixed stages. It's a crescent, it grows, and then it begins to reduce. And when it reduces, حتى until عاد, it returns. What does عاد يعود mean? To return, right? So how was the moon at the beginning of the month? How was it? A crescent. And at the end of the month? A crescent again. Very fine again, until it disappears. So حتى عاد, at the end of the month it returns, appearing to be like what? كالعرجون القديم, like a dried old date stalk. Meaning in its appearance, that's what it looks like. كالعرجون. Kaf is of tashbih, and urjun is from the root letters Ain, Ra, Jim, Nun. Arjan. Urjun from arjan, and arjan is used for a dry date stalk. And in particular, it's used for the stalk that remains after you have removed the dates. You know, sometimes you can buy dates which are actually on the stalk. Have you ever bought them? You ever seen them like that? Now you take all the dates. What is left behind? The stalk, right? What happens to it? You throw it. Next time you buy a box like that, keep the date stalk for a few days, okay? So that you can observe this. What happens is that when all the dates are removed, then what happens after some time? The stalk becomes very dry. And as it dries up, it shrivels up, it becomes thin, and it also bends. It becomes arched, curved. You understand? So it's very thin, and at the same time it's arched, it's curved as well. So what does it look like? A crescent. Right? So just as a crescent, very thin, fine, right? And also in its color, very pale, okay? And in its shape, also bent, curved. This is how the crescent is. Kal-urjun. And al-qadim, meaning one that is old. Because when it becomes old, then it becomes dried and also curved. So what do we see in this ayah? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed for the moon that it should pass through different phases. Why different phases for the moon? Why not just have one full moon all the time? It'd be so much easier. Just count the number of days. When it's 30, then celebrate Eid. Huh? Why is it so? Okay, we know exactly which day of the month it is. Right? We know exactly which day of the month it is. And you know what? It serves as a huge reminder. When you look at the moon, all of a sudden, it's full. What are you reminded of? The middle of the month. Right? And when you look at the moon, it's becoming full. You realize it's been several days since the month of Ramadan ended. Isn't it so? So, when the moon goes through different stages, different phases, then it serves as a huge reminder for us. And in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 189, we learn, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْأَهِلَّةِ قُلْ هِيَ مَوَاقِيتُ لِلنَّاسِ وَالْحَجِّ. They ask you about the new moon, say they are measurements of time for the people and also for Hajj. In Surah Al-Isra, ayah 12, we learn, وَجَعَلْنَا اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ آيَتَيْنِ فَمَحَوْنَا آيَةَ اللَّيْلِ وَجَعَلْنَا آيَةَ النَّهَارِ مُبْصِرَةً لِتَبْتَغُوا فَضْلًا مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ وَلِتَعْلَمُوا عَدَدَ السِّنِينَ وَالْحِسَابَ وَكُلَّ شَيْءٍ فَصَّلْنَاهُ تَفْصِيلًا. That we have made the night and day two signs, and we erased the sign of the night. What is the sign of the night? The moon. The moon is a sign of the night. And made the sign of the day visible. What is the sign of the day? The sun. Right? The moon, what is it dependent on? The sun. Where does it get its light from? From the sun. So the different phases of the moon, what are they? Determined by the sun. Right? Why? So that you may seek bounty from your Lord and may know the number of years and the account of time. And everything we have set out in detail. So the sun is mentioned, the moon is mentioned. Both are of great benefit to people. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made them in a way that they are constantly changing, constantly moving. Why? For our benefit. That they don't just provide us with light. The sun doesn't just give us light in the day, and the moon doesn't just give us light in the night. But rather it serves multiple purposes. We calculate time, right? La shamsu yanbaghi laha. It is not allowable for the sun. La shamsu. La, not ash-shamsu, the sun, meaning not for the sun. Yanbaghi, it is appropriate. Laha, for it. It is not appropriate for the sun. The word yanbaghi is from the root letters Baghain, yeah. And imbigha is understood in two ways. First of all, imbigha for something that is subjected to an action. For something that is subjected to an action, imbigha is when it is possible for it to do something. When it is possible for it to do it. So la yanbaghi, what does it mean? It is not possible for it. It is not possible for it at all. Even if it tries, it cannot do it. So for example, the sun. It is subjected on its particular course. Right? Now, la shamsu yanbaghi laha. It is not possible for the sun to sway from its course. You understand? I'm just giving you an example over here. La shamsu yanbaghi laha imbigha. What does it mean first of all? When it is not possible for something to do something. Secondly, imbigha is also used for worthiness. When an action befits someone. When an action is appropriate for someone. Like for example, we learn that Sulaiman alayhi salam, he made dua that وَهَبْ لِي مُلْكًا لَا يَنْبَغِي لِأَحَدٍ مِّن بَعْدِي. That give me a kingdom which is not appropriate for anyone after me. Meaning it only befits me. It does not befit anyone at all. So over here, la shamsu yanbaghi laha, what does it mean by yanbaghi over here? It is not possible. Even if the sun tries, it is impossible for it to do it. It's not allowed, it's not facilitated, it's not possible for it. And that tudrik al-qamara, that it surpasses the moon. The sun, despite its great size, despite its great power, it is not allowed for it that it would surpass the moon. It would get ahead of the moon. Tudrika, from the root letters dal, ra, kaf, idrak. What does idrak mean? To perceive, to catch up with something, to get hold of something. When you perceive something with your eyes, you've got it in your vision. So idrak is also to get hold of something. So it's not allowed for the sun to catch up with the moon. What does it mean by this, to catch up with the moon? Meaning to appear with it in the night. It's not possible for the sun to appear with the moon in the night. When night comes, the sun has to go. Isn't it? It has to leave. It cannot stay. No matter how strong, no matter how powerful its light is, the light is completely gone. So the sun cannot catch up with the moon. Because if the sun would be there in the night even, then would the moon be visible? No. It's amazing how sometimes during the day you can see the moon. But never in the night you can see the sun. Right? La shamsu yanbaghi laha an tudrika al-qamar. And secondly, that it's not possible for the sun to collide with the moon, to catch up with the moon and consume the moon, make it a part of itself? You can imagine the sun so huge, massive, a ball of fire. Anything that would come close to it, it would be so easy for it to just make it a part of itself. And the moon so tiny, and the sun so huge. It's not possible for the sun to make the moon a part of itself. When will this happen? On the Day of Judgment. وَجُمِعَ الشَّمْسُ وَالْقَمَرُ. But right now, it's not possible for the sun to catch up with the moon. But on the Day of Judgment, وَجُمِعَ الشَّمْسُ وَالْقَمَرُ. The sun and the moon will be joined together. So لَا الشَّمْسُ يَنْبَغِي لَهَا أَن تُدْرِكَ الْقَمَرَ وَلَا اللَّيْلُ. And nor is it possible for the night. What? That it's سَابِقُ النَّهَارِ, it surpasses the day. Sabiq from the root letter Sin, Baqab, Sabaqa, to get ahead, to outstrip, to proceed. So it's not possible for the night to get ahead of the day, meaning it would never ever arrive until the day comes to an end. The night can never come until the day has ended. You understand? Just imagine two people working in shifts in the same office, on the same desk. One person works for certain hours. When they leave, then the other one comes. What would happen typically? One has not left, the other has come. He says, please stay outside, let me finish my work, then come. He says, no, I'm here already, let me put my bag. Let me just settle down and you wrap up. Isn't that inconvenient? Very inconvenient. Just imagine I'm not finished with my class and the next class teacher comes and sits right here. Inconvenient, of course. But imagine the sun and the moon, the night and the day. What happens? The night does not come until the day has completely left. The sun cannot appear with the moon. وَلَا اللَّيْلُ سَابِقُ النَّهَارِ وَكُلٌّ. Why is it so that there is a fixed schedule that is observed with discipline? How is it possible? Because وَكُلٌّ, and all, meaning the sun, the moon, and the stars, وَكُلٌّ فِي فَلَكٍ يَسْبَحُونَ. In their orbits, in their falak, they are يَسْبَحُونَ, they are flowing. Yasbahun is from the root letter Sin, Baha. Sabaha means to move quickly, in air or in water. So all of these celestial bodies are moving in their orbits, moving very easily, without any collision, without speeding up where they're not supposed to speed up. They're moving in the speed that they're supposed to move in. So in this is a huge lesson for us. And what is that lesson? That if you look at these celestial bodies, the sun and the moon, they're so huge, so massive, and they're so beneficial, but they are busy doing exactly what they're supposed to do. Constantly they remain in obedience to Allah. How? وَكُلٌّ فِي فَلَكٍ يَسْبَحُونَ. And because they're busy doing what they're supposed to do, they do not clash with one another either. They do not collide with one another either. And we have to observe ourselves. That first of all, how obedient are we to Allah? The sun and the moon? فِي فَلَكٍ يَسْبَحُونَ. Night and day, constantly coming, going, coming, going. And how much are we concerned about our work? The sun is concerned about its work. The moon is concerned about its work. How much are we concerned about our work and how much are we concerned about other people's work? And then what is our behavior with other people? People whom we work with. If you think about it, كُلٌّ فِي فَلَكٍ يَسْبَحُونَ. There are very few people who do not get tired doing what they're doing. Typically we work for some time and then we start showing that we're tired. It's been too long. But the sun, the moon, فِي فَلَكٍ يَسْبَحُونَ. There are only a few people who do not express that fatigue. We do express it at least. We show that, oh, we have done so much and our efforts must be appreciated and we must be acknowledged and it's been too long and I cannot handle it anymore and somebody else should take this job now. And we see that the entire universe is constantly moving, constantly doing what it's supposed to do. Much greater, much mightier than us, but so peacefully. Isn't it? If you look at the sun, you look at the moon, you look at the night, the day, the sky above you, do you ever feel threatened? No. Do you ever have a feeling that the sun is going to do something? It's going to explode, or something's going to happen with the moon, or it's going to fall down or something? No. It's so peaceful. But if you look at it, human beings, how is their size compared to the size of the sun and moon? Tiny. But because of the little freedom that we have, look at the disaster we have caused on the earth, and look at the peace that exists in the skies. Isn't that amazing? Why is it that whatever is in the heavens is functioning so smoothly? Because they are in obedience to Allah. And why is it that there is so much disaster, chaos, fasad on the earth? Because we are not obedient to Allah. ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر, not في السماء. Why? بما كسبت أيدي الناس. And في السماء, we cannot do much. This is why there is no fasad there. في السماء, whatever that's there, they are obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also we see that all of these creatures, the sun, the moon, they're running on their courses, doing what they're supposed to do, and as a result, they are beneficial. Isn't it? How is the sun beneficial to us? How is the moon beneficial to us? Because it's doing what it's supposed to do. If the sun were to catch up with the moon, not let the moon show at night, because the sun says, I do not wish to go, then would we benefit? No. Who would suffer? People would suffer. So, if the sun does not come out, who would suffer? We would suffer. If the moon does not come out at this time, who would suffer? We would suffer. If the night did not come, the day did not come, who would suffer? We would. So the fact that all of them are doing what they're supposed to do, only then is it that we can benefit. And we as human beings are dependent on all these creatures and systems, and they're silently doing their work. Isn't it? Think about it. How much is it that we depend on the light of the sun? So much. If we don't get sunlight, does our health get affected? Our bones, do they get affected? Of course they do. But look at how silently the sun, the moon, the stars are doing their work, and we do something small and we advertise it so much. So, this is a great lesson for us. How the sun and the moon are functioning silently, obediently, constantly, without creating a fuss, without colliding into one another. And if you look at it, the sun, despite being so huge and strong, powerful, does it trample over the moon? No, it doesn't. It stays within its bounds. And we need to learn that as well. That no matter what responsibility we have been given, no matter what work we are doing, we have to learn to stay within our bounds and not interfere with other people. Because when we start interfering with other people's work, then that is what leads to fasad. It's amazing. The sun, the moon, tremendous, huge. But look at the peace that exists up in the sky. Look at the calmness that exists in the sky. Why? Each is concerned about its own work, constantly obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, staying within their limits. Okay, we'll listen to the recitation and then we'll continue. If you think about it, all of them are moving. Kullun fi falakin yasbahun. But they're not moving to defeat one another, to destroy one another. They're moving in order to do their work. Sometimes what happens, we're very swift in doing our work, very quick. But what's the niyyah? What's the intention? To show other people as bad, to show other people as lazy. That's not right. Do what you have to do. Do it with excellence. Do it to the best of your ability. Not to show other people as bad, but just to do your work properly. This is what sincerity is.